The president is spending the weekend at his home in Bedminster, New Jersey, as the fate of nearly 3,000 migrant children remain in question. The kids have been separated from their families at the U.S.-Mexico border. Around 100 are under the age of 5. The administration is asking a judge to extend its Tuesday deadline to reunite the youngest children while continuing to defend its policies. Paula Reed has the latest.
We are with you 100%.
Defending its controversial immigration policies, the Trump administration did a full court press this week.
We will always stand proudly with the brave heroes of ICE and our Border Patrol.
As Vice President Pence and Homeland Security Chief Kirstjen Nielsen visited ICE headquarters in Washington Friday, amid calls from some Democrats to eliminate the embattled agency.
Abolishing ICE would mean more illegal immigration.
His message echoed comments made by President Trump at a rally in Montana Thursday.
We're going to protect ICE.
The president has repeatedly said he hopes Democrats continue attacking ICE because he thinks it will help Republicans at the polls.
New platform of the Democrat Party is to abolish ICE. In other words, they want to abolish immigration enforcement entirely. That's what they want to do.
But one issue that could hurt Republicans in the midterms this November is a budding trade war. After the administration imposed a new 25% tariff on $34 billion worth of products imported from China that went into effect Friday.
I think of this, as the president does, as a trade dispute. The trade war is long over.
Trade dispute. We'll call it trade battle for now.
White House trade advisor Peter Navarro claims there is no trade war and says the administration is not worried about retaliation, even though China has already hit back with tariffs on U.S.-made goods.
It's not going to bother our economy. It's not going to bother us. And if they try to bully our farmers or anybody else in this country, President Trump's going to stand up for those folks.
In addition to those retaliatory tariffs, China also released a statement saying the U.S. has launched the biggest trade war in economic history. Paula Reed, CBS News, Berkeley Heights, New Jersey.
CBSN political contributor and Associated Press White House reporter Zeke Miller is in Washington. Okay, Zeke, do you get the sense when we're talking about this trade dispute with China, is the White House concerned that this could bleed into midterms and really affect folks, companies and people here?
All the bravado aside, like we just heard from Peter Navarro there in that package, the White House is very concerned, both politically and from a policy standpoint, that the effects of these trade policies, of these tariffs, will have a downward impact on the economy, on the economic growth, will get in the way of sort of the positive economic momentum that the president would have riding into the midterm elections and then into his 2020 re-election. There is certainly a concern. The question is, within the administration, what do they do about it? This is an issue where one of the very few issues really where the president has been crystal clear where he stands for over 30 years about trade, about protectionist economic policies. So the president doesn't seem to be very concerned, but a lot of the political advisors around him certainly are on his behalf.
I want to turn now to the issue of immigration. The Trump administration originally had said a little over 2,000 kids have been separated from their parents. That number is now up to 3,000. Any explanation why, Zeke?
Certainly, there's a delay in reporting by the Health and Human Services and the Department of Homeland Security in terms of how they process data and how they release it to the public. In a new month, we get new data, and so here we are in July. But it also there's been some record keeping issues, and that the department has dealt with in terms of trying to keep track of all the children that they have separated from their parents at the border who are undergoing criminal proceedings as a result of crossing the country illegally, but then also in terms of reuniting them, some reports that they're having to use DNA tests and other investigatory methods because when they were separating children from their parents, they did not keep accurate records. So there's certainly a lot of questions now regarding how the departments involved managed these children that they separated. This is not necessarily a new policy on the part of the Trump administration. It's been going on for several years now, but the scale with which the Trump administration has separated children from families who have crossed the border illegally is certainly unprecedented. And that's the sort of the area where how have they managed that? And the answer seems to be not well.
You know, Zeke, it's our understanding about 100 of these kids are under 5. A judge gave the administration strict orders. You've got to reunite these families by Tuesday. We know the government has now asked for an extension. Do we know why they're not able to do these reunions yet? And do you get the sense that that deadline will be extended?
It's too soon to tell what the judge will decide, but what the government seems to be arguing is that this is a complicated process. Their resources are taxed because there are so many children coming across the border. In the case of HHS, they've also said that so many members of Congress and members of the media are trying to inspect these facilities, and that's also taxing their resources. But it really gets to the core of this is an entirely anticipated problem by the Trump administration. They knew this would happen as a result of the zero tolerance enforcement policy that they rolled out a few months ago, but they seem to be woefully unprepared for it, and that's this is a management issue on the part of the Trump administration that really was entirely avoidable if they had got the resources in place, the proper procedures in place. This shouldn't, reuniting a 5-year-old child or a 4-year-old child with a parent should not be very hard, but here it is.
Yeah, no, we just many people don't understand why this isn't happening right away. I want to ask you though, Zeke, we are watching the president's Twitter feed a little closely this weekend as he's expected to announce his Supreme Court nominee on Monday. What's the sense, Zeke? What is he looking for? Do you get a sense from White House officials as to what he wants? And do we know if he's whittled down that list any further?
Well, as much as I'm with you watching the Twitter, everything administration officials tell me is that this isn't going to come there. The president's trying to, what the president really wants is the suspense, and that means that he's not going to leak things out on Twitter. This probably, if you look at the last time this happened, almost 18 months ago with Justice Gorsuch, it didn't really leak until he showed up in the East Room. That's the level of suspense the president's looking for. Officials say the president right now wants to show this is what he does best. In a way, what he believes he does best is sort of put on a show, portray himself as the commander-in-chief. This is one of the most presidential things a president can do, nominating somebody for the Supreme Court. So he wants that, wants to deal with that. In terms of the actual list of who he might pick Monday night, the short list, we've seen the list of 25 names that had been vetted by those conservative groups that the White House had put out there over the last year or so. That list has been whittled down to 6 or 7 earlier last week, and now appears down to be about 4. So by some counts 2, but somewhere between 2 and 4. That's where the president's deciding between. Judge Kavanaugh seems to be the leading contender on that list, but will the president end up there or somewhere else? That is, the president's keeping us all guessing.
Yeah, it's interesting your point about how it's sort of this reality show feel to it. I mean, do you not get a rose? Does he hand him out a gavel in the end? What?
Pretty much. I mean, that's last year, 18 months ago, we were all speculating in the East Room. I remember before the president came out and announced Judge Gorsuch that maybe the other candidate would be there. At the time, we thought it was Judge Hardiman was sort of the other finalist. Maybe he'd be there in the room too, and the president would sort of do this in some spectacular fashion. That obviously didn't occur. Yeah. But certainly the president wants to keep everyone guessing. There is a sense of this is a show. This is where the president wants the nation's attention to be. He does not particularly want it to be on issues like the resignation under pressure of Scott Pruitt earlier this week, or these issues of the children separated from their families. This is something he can control, and he'd like to keep the spectacle right there.
Yeah, I just remember some poor person being followed around from gas station to gas station to see whether or not they're coming to D.C. So a lot of hype and suspense on this announcement. Zeke, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.